All right, we're back on the Kevin and Fred show, rejoined by multiple time, fourth, fifth, sixth appearance time, Frank Klesitz, owner of Klesitz Direct and Viral Marketing. What is there anything else we should put on your title now?
No, that's it. Those are my two main ways to make money.
Arizona resident,
just moved to Phoenix.
Yeah.
In the middle of the summer, and my AC went out.
How do you feel about that?
Very hot.
Yeah.
Very frustrated. But you learn it's how you react to it, Kevin.
What do they say?
You learn how to adjust your emotions.
Life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you respond to it.
Kevin, it's very hot here in Phoenix.
It is. Well, I mean, you did move in the middle of the summer, to be fair. This is why I try not to spend it. I just got back to Arizona. This is the first podcast I've recorded in months.
You were in San Diego for how long?
4 weeks, but it feels like it wasn't enough.
That's so nice.
I love the beach.
You know, when you drive from Phoenix over the mountains and you just kind of get over the mountains where you hit that pocket of San Diego, it's just like this woof of like 110 degree heat down to like 72.
Yeah.
And you open the windows, you're like, I can breathe.
And it literally happens like that. You can watch the temperature gauge in your vehicle go from like 110.
No, I took pictures.
And all the way down to like low 70s, sometimes upper. There was a couple days while we were there, the first week of the trip, where it was in the upper 60s there and almost hitting 120 here. It was a 50-degree swing from home compared to where we were on the beach. Well, I didn't want to come back. If my kids didn't start school.
Yeah, school starts early here, man.
Yeah.
It started late July.
Yeah, it's weird. My kids start actually next week, but still.
Yeah, my kids are already 2 weeks in school.
It happens. So, dude, first of all, I like talking to you for the fun of it because we're buddies.
Yeah.
Whether we're talking about real estate, whether we're talking about direct response marketing, whether we're talking about whatever else.
I love the craft of marketing and business.
Yeah. And your primary customers in your businesses are real estate agents. And so I love that it kind of gives you a good insight, unique perspective on the industry because you get to hear it from people in different parts of the country who are doing different things. They're running different models. And you pick up on the trends. You see stuff that is like the same everywhere. And you see when someone's truly an outlier. So you always have a pretty good handle on what's going on. So let's just chat about like, what are you seeing? You sent me a pretty depressing email the other day about the real estate market in general. Yeah. And so why don't we start with, dude, what are you seeing? You talk to real estate agents every day.
Every day.
What are the common themes you're hearing right now?
Well, several. One is, I think from 2000, let's call it, post 2008, call it 2010 to 2020, and maybe a cherry on top from 2021 to maybe 2022 before they blew up interest rates, brought them up, is the whole real estate industry has been set up from a business model standpoint, arguably in a low interest rate environment. And for the first time for many of us in our careers, maybe older millennials, whatnot, is now you're in a higher interest rate environment and there's this lock-in effect and existing home sales are down and affordability is a big issue and it's much more difficult to put deals together. It requires a lot more expertise.
Yeah.
And it's challenging maybe the concept of a team where maybe at a minimum you have some part-time people that can be glorified showing agents getting a commission. So I think you have this higher interest rate environment of affordability is pulling people back down the mountain into the business with anger in many respects.
Resentment, anger.
And anger that, their agents aren't competent enough or skilled enough to put together more difficult deals where you don't have to be maybe the past 10 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Second, this really happened to me incredibly at Viral because everyone, at our company's W-2 or, 40-hour week, work is the cost of living. So you spend, 2, 3 years, 5 years, 6, whatever it is, training your leadership team. And they kind of look up to you and they realize they can't afford to work for you anymore. They can't afford you to come into the office and they got to stay home because of the expense or the child care. And you can't afford your key leaders. They may have to go find another job. And now some of your key people that you relied on, you don't have the operations manuals, you don't have the training manuals, they leave and that pulls you down. So you have some agents getting pulled out And key leaders at the wages you set your business up for aren't able to maybe make ends meet with what you can afford to pay them. So you're seeing some turnover in the leadership side, which then pulls you down, which adds to maybe some of that anger and resentment, right? Third, I think generally there's been this culture of I can step out of production. How do I get out of production? How do I get out of production? And unless you've got to that messy middle, or unless maybe you have, with many of these brokerages, you have a nice smoothing out of revenue share or profit share, or maybe you have some coaching business income or title money income smoothing things out. If your income is purely on real estate commission, you find yourself back in production again. I need to go actually list houses. And honestly, it's just because that's how you're going to lead your agents that you need to do it. You got to lead by example. Buy-side commission lawsuit of how that's going to play out. I'm not very versed in this, but maybe you can explain how this works. Chances are, from what I understand, and maybe I'm incorrect, that if I'm a listing agent, I'm probably just going to ask for maybe 2.5% to 3%, and then tell the seller, you can do whatever concession you want. Seller offers a concession to the buyer, but that money goes to the buyer, and the buyer has to choose how much of that money to give the agent. Is that the gist of the settlement?
I want to be careful with how much I say. So I think you're very close.
I don't quite understand it.
There's a contract, though, between the buyer's agent and the buyer. So whether or not that contract gets fulfilled through a seller concession or out of the pocket of the buyer doesn't matter. There's a contract between the buyer and the buyer's agent for whatever the amount is.
Yeah.
And that amount could be paid directly from the buyer, or it could possibly be paid through seller concessions, what we used to call a commission. That is, and it's wildly different than it used to. You and I have been talking about this just like in our regular phone conversations or Zooms or in person for the last probably 4 years or so, that, hey, there's a day that this could come. Yeah. And in fact, it may not be over. The DOJ may not be satisfied with this, and it could be completely decoupled even further, to which the seller isn't allowed to pay it.
So there's uncertainty there.
There's a lot of uncertainty.
And I don't think whenever I ask, I don't quite understand, but that's coming up shortly at the time of this recording. So I think you have all these different things of, look, I have to generate, if you're in real estate, I have to generate seller leads. Is there a way to do it where it's not, just inconsistent referral, or, leading a team of 1099 agents to do it in a much more difficult environment that requires a lot more training and investment in the agent than maybe in a low interest rate environment? And maybe you have more money arguably leaving buyer side lead generation, if you can't get the seller leads out of it, into direct seller lead generation. So there's just a lot of trends that I see of kind of restructuring maybe just of 10 years of how you went out building a team, to just some of the, in business, maybe like a strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats model. I don't think what I'm sharing here is anything new, but I'm on the phone all day long with real clients, like trying to make a profit and trying to do marketing, and I'm getting asked questions. I'm like, what are the issues you're facing? And these are the things that come up on more one-to-one phone calls than maybe what you hear like on a podcast or webinar with some of the real issues people are dealing with.
Yeah, these things do come. It's funny you mentioned that, like about growing the team. Like I've got a team. I've been out of production for almost 10 years. And it's harder to be profitable today than it ever has been at any point in the last 10 years. And you talked about like, you actually,
for those reasons,
you have, like you have to get through that messy middle. It was hard for most agents to get through the messy middle when things were easier. It's significantly harder today.
Yep.
To go to your point though, or something else you said about like the change, we've got the commission, lawsuit settlement, kind of all the new practices are now rolling out. I think that for the next, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, I think there's going to be a lot of like people trying to get their sea legs, trying to figure out what's going on, because your point, deals are a lot harder to put together. And now we've got some stricter and newer rules to follow in order to be compensated. We've got to have better conversations with the consumer to make sure we are compensated. But here's what I think really happens. I think for the weaker agent, the agent that doesn't really like practice their craft and try to become a great real estate professional, high level fiduciary for their clients,
Yeah.
they're going to get squeezed out. And I think what's going to happen is as soon as this sort of becomes normal, whether that's 60 days or 6 months from now or a year from now, it kind of doesn't matter. I think we actually have a bigger opportunity than ever on the representing the buyer side. I actually think for the first time ever, this becomes a bigger opportunity financially than it has been for my entire career, which granted only goes back to 2007, but still.
The real competent ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's going to be kind of like the rest of the United States. It's going to be an even bigger division of the haves and have-nots, right?
Yes. So I think the trend that I see is team leader back in production, money going into building relationships directly with homeowners and the database in some way, your existing clients, lowering the footprint on existing office space, and getting very comfortable with working with key people that may not be in your office. Maybe they work from home or they're around the country, or even further, getting much more comfortable, giving more responsibility to foreign labor, typically VAs, I like to say, international staff.
Yeah.
I think those are your big trends that you see, and that's like an adjustment. So
Fun times,
fun times.
right? It's a challenge.
And it hadn't happened past year and a half.
You know when it happened to me? You know what day I always think about? Because you and I were in the same room. April 2022, the mastermind that we did together, we had Phil Jones there that day. There's like probably 35 of us in the room. That day was the day everything felt like it started to turn to me. That's the day I always think of, like it hasn't been the same since that day.
What do you think that was?
I don't know. I think I just remember us having conversations that day. And there was a lot of high-level agents in that room, like some big business owners and some high-level people, like our mutual buddy Dave Z we were just talking about. Andrew Franklin was there. And I think there was some really smart people in the room. We just were talking about the differences that we were starting to see in the market and the fact that it looked like rates were going up. Or maybe they already had gone up a touch by then. And for me, I just always think of that day as the moment in time where it started to change.
Yeah, I think the first thing that what I would hear is like, Frank, I'm having difficulty paying you. I'm having difficulty doing this because I got a lot of listings. And they were supposed to close, but they didn't.
Ooh.
They'd starting to back out and the deals were falling through.
You know, I didn't think about that. As a service provider, you're providing a service to agents.
Yeah, I'm a fixed expense.
Yeah. So
Variable commission
I
revenue.
didn't realize that. You know, I didn't think about that. So you get all of a sudden cards are being declined or they're just calling up and saying,
Oh,
hey,
yeah. I mean, think about the excitement. You start doing some marketing. You start getting some response. You start going on appointments. You start getting listing contracts signed. You go through the whole process, and day of closing comes, you're expecting the check, and you probably, kind of organize things. This is a reasonable thing that's going to come through. And then boom, it doesn't. And then boom, 2, 3, 4 don't. Because they get it. I don't know why this is, why you get, I've been in real estate transactions, why the title company gives you the final document like at final hour. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's the mortgage payment. Oh, that's all the real expenses.
like you and I recording this on a Friday afternoon. It's August 2nd. Like someone's coming to pick up a check, later today somewhere. And because they know they could still make their mortgage payment tonight. And
dude, yeah. I mean, you
not
get
get a phone
that
call.
settlement statement like it's like 2 or 3 days before closing. And you look at it, you're like, well, you know what? That couple $1,000 earnest money, I'm out. I can't swing it. It came back too high, more than I expected after you add all the other expenses in. Plus, I think another thing too, man, like property taxes were also maybe arguably resetting because of the increase in home values. So the property taxes that you might be used to on that settlement statement are very different now than what they were. Maybe not so much in Arizona.
Yeah, I think we're Arizona. We're pretty lucky from this. We've got a fairly decent. I guess it's a matter of perspective. It's not like California property taxes around here. So
yeah, but after prices go up, they reset the assessments, and now that property tax comes back, you're not used to it. You see that. So I think that's where you would see a lot of and I think that's the case. A lot of it is lots of list. And maybe do you find yourself we're going more into a buyer's market in Arizona?
in some
areas.
Our market is really. Do you have you ever seen the Cromford Report?
No. I heard that's a big thing here.
Yeah, dude. I don't know if you can subscribe as a non-MLS member, but I bet you Patty has the ability to get it. You should pay for a subscription. It's the best stats that we have, but it breaks.
My wife's mother, who's a licensed agent.
Yes. Sorry for not giving that to the listener. They picked up on the fact it was a licensed agent. And the amount of data that you can drill down to by city and even by zip code is pretty impressive. And you can see the difference of markets and like days on market, month supply, things like that, price per square foot, listed price per square foot. So like every stat you could ever want. The guy that owns this company, Mike Orr, is a mathematician, a literal mathematician.
That's really helpful.
And it's the best stats I've ever seen anywhere. And so highly recommend getting a subscription to that. And I'll show you mine, but you can really break it down by city. And so, yeah, there are some where we're starting to get back into a buyer's market, but it's weird. You can't just say that about
everything,
like the Phoenix area, right? It's so big and spread out that it really depends on what part of town you're talking about and what like little segment you're talking about. Because some places it's still very much a seller's market. The demand is still low, but the supply is so low that it's really keeping people in this weird spot.
Yeah. So I think for what I do is there's a question with, okay, is it possible to generate some seller leads, reasonably at scale that's not maybe mass texting or mass phone calling, which has had its litigious issues in the years prior. AdWords can get pretty crowded out and inconsistent. So you're usually pretty typically left with, okay, I'm going to work referrals from my list, or I'm going to build a team of agents to work their database, their neighborhoods. But there's somewhere where I can, maybe you as the team can be in control of the seller lead. And in some markets, not all, in some markets, direct mail works very well with a personal letter in some markets.
Why is it some markets?
I don't know. You want to try to apply a scientific method to that process where you want to pull a sample size large enough. Like let's walk through how to build a list. So if anyone's listening, how do you build a great mailing list? Well, I would take Maricopa County.
Okay.
And I would say, how many zip codes are in Maricopa? And I would take all the zip codes in Maricopa. And then I would log into any type of property software and figure out how many single family homes are in each zip code. Then I would log in. I would say how many sold in the past 12 months. You can't go to the MLS. You have to go to the deed data because you'll have off-market transactions. So I'll basically say they've been, the date of sale hasn't changed in the past year. And then I'll divide the number. So I'm looking for the turnover rate.
Right.
And then I'll take all the zip codes and I'll sort it on the spreadsheet from highest turnover to lowest turnover. And typically speaking, I don't know where Surprise is the highest turnover right now in Phoenix.
Is it?
Yep.
Are you surprised by that?
I think it's because they're builders. Are they building out there?
I think so.
Yeah. So I don't know why, but usually you're going to find more of the affordable peripheral places that people can actually afford a home are going to have your more higher turnover rates. So you'll take maybe, let's say, the top 10 of those. And then in each of those zip codes, as you work like the best poker tables all the way down, look at every zip code is like a poker table with the best odds, is a way of looking at it.
I love it.
Let's play those games, right? Let's play those games in those zip codes where homes are selling. I'll go into that zip code and I'll take every single family home that's been lived in for at least 10 years that's not in a trust or LLC. And I'll cut off anything that might be a luxury or more because you talk to those people differently. So I'll throw out luxury. I'll throw out confirmed landlords in an LLC.
Just for real quick, when you say throw out luxury, are you defining that as anything?
Twice the median.
Twice the median. Okay. I was going to say top 10% or twice the median.
I think it's subjective. I'll usually ask the client because you know the market, but if anything, maybe twice the median. So the average median price is $500,000. I'll throw out everything over $1 million.
Okay. Fair.
Yeah. So what you go into a zip code and you kind of trim the fat.
Okay.
Then I'll go into the next, so that'll waterfall the first zip. I'll grab it. Then I'll go to the second zip and trim the fat and grab it in the next zip. So now you have a really good sample size of the highest turnover zip codes, of typically someone who's going to sell their home is older than that's lived in their home longer, especially there. And then you can replicate that process across the country, but you also need to grab enough homes where you get a decent enough sample size. So typically in these lists, you have a 4% turnover rate, meaning if you get a list of 10,000 homes, you're going to have 400 sellers in it.
Okay.
Got it? So you got to mail 10,000 letters to reach 400 people that will sell their home in the next 12 months.
Okay.
You know? So everyone mails at least 10,000 because I think you have to have a big enough sample size of volume to statistically hit somebody, because the big thing with letters is marketing doesn't create, especially direct mail letters, they don't create motivation, they just find it.
Yeah.
So you have to like find someone who's motivated to sell that probably doesn't have an existing relationship with a realtor that's going to respond to your letter and actually close. So you have to put statistical odds in your favor. So I guess what I'm getting at is I did this in 30 different markets around the country.
That's a lot.
Tempe, bombed. Total disaster. Very few phone calls. Most people yelled at you. You send me to Greensboro.
Mm-hmm.
You send me to maybe Wilmington. You do the letters maybe in northwest Seattle, north of King County, north of Seattle, blowing up. Roanoke, Virginia. So more of your, I would argue, like your non-major cities, or
Okay.
the outskirts of major cities, tend to work the best. And why that is, I don't know. The prices are generally kind of similar. I think it might be more of just the demographics of the individual, more of it's non-transient. I don't know. But it's more of, I would just probably say it's more of the smaller cities. The phone blows up and rings and people want to know. But when you go into maybe more affluent, more educated markets, it becomes more difficult.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So the reason I answered the question that way is everyone mailed the right sample size. Everyone built the list the same way. The letter was generally the same. So all those things were held consistent. The only difference was the market. And all over the place at different markets around the United States.
So I shouldn't go send letters in Tempe.
Nope. I wouldn't do it in Sacramento, and I wouldn't do it in Utah.
Really?
Nope. San Luis Obispo. That worked. I didn't know about that one. That one hit.
They hit?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
Omaha, Nebraska, Amarillo, Texas, Waco, Texas, Roanoke, Virginia, Eastern Tennessee, Greensboro. Oh, Albany, New York.
Really?
Click a button, your phone blows up.
All right. So here's my question for you, though. Just because I want to pick your brain as a marketer.
Yeah.
But let's say Tempe, as an example, is my market.
Yeah.
I mean, it actually is part of my, it's quite literally where my office is. But like, let's say I focused on only Tempe or one of these other cities where it doesn't hit. What would you turn your attention to?
Well, I would try letters one more time.
How so?
So the main letter that works is when you're brokering anything. Like when you're trying to broker a deal, it's pretty much I might have a buyer, I might have someone that's interested in buying. And if you're interested to know what my buyer will pay, give me a call. You don't want to say like I have a for sure buyer in your home. You can never guarantee that brokering any deal, but you could say I might have a buyer and I have a legitimate claim I do. Be ethical when you do it, and that's a whole other discussion.
For sure.
But generally they call that in the real estate industry the golden letter. Like I have a buyer for your house, call me. But you need to hedge that statement because you're just the broker. You're not the principal buyer. Okay? You can't guarantee they're going to close the deal, no matter who the buyer is, no matter how much bags of cash they have or what the criteria is. So the first message is I have a buyer for your house, or I may have a buyer for your house, and call me to find out what they're willing to pay you. That's the hook. All right? Does not work well in Tempe. Everyone just yells at you. And they already have an existing relationship with an agent. And they call you and tell you that no matter what happens, as sure as the sun rises, they will never hire you.
I mean, we do have 35,000 agents in our MLS. So.
I can read the text. I can play some phone calls. But I think there's another option. And this is why I think this is the second call to action. So there's an agent in North Jersey, very affluent, very educated market in North Jersey. And there's these different towns all along in North Jersey. Like, I don't know the areas, but little townships, I guess they're called.
Yeah.
We were trying to figure out how to get the phone to ring and how to get people to call that were interested in selling their house to a very educated market. And the idea was a seller workshop. Is why don't you call if you'd like a free ticket to a seminar that will teach you how to be the most profitable homeowner in Tempe and help you understand all of your options to sell so you can fully prepare your home to sell it for the most amount of money with the least amount of hassle and avoiding the most common mistakes I've seen over my 20 years in business doing this. And if you'd like a free ticket to it, let me know and I'll give you a free ticket. Would you like to come?
So this is like a backdoor. This is not, I don't have a buyer.
No, very different message.
This is, I'm going to educate you on how to do.
Same sample size.
Yeah. Like literally exact same list.
Yeah. Same list. I wouldn't change the list at all. It would be the same list, same 10,000, which the turnover rates here are about 3%. So you got to mail 10,000 to reach 300 sellers. So really, when you really think about it, if you're mailing 10,000, you're really trying to hit the 300. The problem is you don't know who the 300 are in the 10,000.
Right.
Right. So with the turnover rates, there's probably 300 people that will actually close on a transaction the next 12 months based upon the trailing 12 months of data. Given existing home sales and how they tanked in June, it may be lower.
Yeah.
So the only way you make up for that, one of the ways to think about it too is like if you have a 4% turnover rate, 10,000 letters will hit 400 sellers. But if it drops down to 2%, like you see in some higher end markets of California, you have to mail 20,000 to hit the same number.
The same 400.
Got it? So a lot of direct mail, and even when you think of advertising, is really an understanding of statistics. And you put those odds in your favor, and you can hopefully have a 51% advantage of winning in the gamble of advertising.
That's wild, though. Like, if you've got to go mail now 20,000 instead of 10,000.
Yeah,
like,
that's why. But you get the reward of a higher price in California. Like, there's a guy in Newport Beach that's mailing. Turnover rates came in around a little under 2.5%. There's some markets where the turnover rate's 5-6%. Tends to be more new builders, though.
So the question I think is like, okay, my natural instinct is like, okay, is there a cheaper way to get to them?
Yeah.
Like because if you've identified the 10,000, obviously you don't know the 400 yet, or in this case, the 20,000, and you don't know the 400 people in there who are going to sell unless you have a crystal ball.
Yep. How do you get the message in front of them? Because I have a buyer, or I may have a buyer.
I may have a buyer,
or you want to come to my seller workshop.
Right.
So you can cold call them, litigious. You can cold text them, litigious. You could flyer them.
That's what I was wondering. I'm like, wondering if you could.
I did that.
I'm wondering if you could flyer them. I wonder if you could, literally door knock them.
Kevin, the flyering worked really well.
Because that would cut the expense down considerably, right?
You still have the cut price of labor. What's minimum wage here? 20?
Don't ask me questions I don't know. No, 20. It is in California. Well, if you flip burgers, it's 20.
Yeah.
In California, I know that. I don't know what it is.
It's hard to do it in the summer heat.
Yeah. There's an agent here. I'm sure there's more than one, but this is the guy I know because he was the very first office I ever joined when I was freshly licensed. The guy's kind of like in fact, I just saw him last week. I know him because he's got the same vanity plate that says prospect because he prospects every day. And he knocked.
His vanity plate's called prospect.
It's like his license plate on his car. If you ever see a black Mercedes, the license plate says prospect. You'll see it around town, I promise. He knocks on 100 doors a day minimum.
Yeah.
He's got a couple neighborhoods that he farms, and he calls the for sale by owners in there. He calls the
That
canceled
works.
expireds, and then he knocks on the same set of doors. Yep. And in the summertime, I don't know if he still does it to this day, but I know at one point, like as an example, if it was 100 and my watch says it's 140 degrees out right now, so he'd hit 104 doors that day.
My question,
like clockwork, 5 days a week.
Is if he had to leverage himself, so you can do it yourself.
Well, this particular agent doesn't have a lot of leverage in his business. He's really one of those like kind of really optimized solo agents.
Yeah.
He's not quite a team, but he's not exactly solo. However, I think of this guy, Bill is his name. I think of Bill and I'm like, man, if this was in his farm area, or if he had the list of however many, and like he could literally just knock on their doors because that's what he does anyways. I'm not saying I want to do this. I knocked doors once. It was terrible. I haven't done it since. It was early 2008. I haven't knocked on a door
I
since.
think it'd be hard to build a scaled business model around it.
Can't scale it.
Yeah.
Can't scale it.
So the second best option.
But most agents aren't scaling right now. We talked about it in the beginning part. Like most agents are just trying to make money.
Oh yeah. I mean, probably one of the first things I would do if I was going to start a real estate team here in Phoenix is, I would probably first partner with someone like you and see how can I revive some of the dead from your database and work them for a commission split. I would work some experienced agents list. Then I'd probably go up to the college and say, hey, I'm looking for a real estate apprentice. Would you like to, help me prospect and bird dog deals to me, and I'll cut you in on it on 100% commission. And you could definitely probably build like an apprenticeship junior senior model of training someone up to help you prospect. I would start Phoenix's leading real estate apprenticeship program. Hey, are you looking to get in the real estate game and want to learn from a master? Apply for my apprenticeship. You'll start by basically making calls and knocking on doors, bringing people to me. You watch me do the call, and you'll train your way up into being a senior partner.
I love this. And you probably already have a landing page like this built.
Oh, years. Yeah. I mean,
I've seen you build landing pages for jobs.
Oh, it crushes.
And you're great at that.
Yeah, you had to position as an apprenticeship, not an internship. Internships like you do short to like put on your resume, but there is, without question, there is a market for a real estate apprenticeship program to learn how to maybe escape the situation that you're in financially. Like if you're looking to maybe escape, to maybe break the cycle that you've been in. I mean, this is the real message. You know, keep your day job or keep going to school, but work for me part-time as an apprentice. You're going to help me find business. And you're going to bring people to basically three-way calls with me. You're going to kind of MLM it. You're going to bring people to three-way calls with me and listen to the calls, and we're going to, you know, you'll participate in the upside.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Phoenix's leading real estate apprenticeship. Apply now.
That's a good one. I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah. So I think, I guess when you say direct mail, you're trying to reach homeowners. The next best option, because you can get a list of homeowners and append phone numbers, maybe 50% match, and then of that, like half of them are even good, and of that, 10% even answer, let alone if they're on the DNC list or not, or if you're using an auto dialer. The next best option is you can take that same mailing list and you can upload it to an advertising service.
Yeah.
And you can just take the same exact message that you have in, say, your letter and put it on an ad or put it on a video. And maybe that might work.
So try to hit them offline and online?
Yeah, offline would be probably letter, door knocking. That's safe. Or through some type of online advertising of retargeting or what they call over-the-top or OTT targeting.
What's that?
It's where you can basically upload property addresses.
Okay.
And it will only show it to that parcel if you're consuming digital media.
Like a digital
like
ad.
a digital fence.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So I can take the same mailing list of all the homeowners in South Tempe, upload it to an advertising service, and show the ads just to those homeowners.
It's called OTT?
I think it's called over the top, OTT.
Interesting.
Yep. So that's digital.
Like extra creepy. Stalking.
Dude, the information that's available for digital marketing, especially when you start getting into like programs like Trade Desk, or you start getting into companies like Epsilon or Axiom or Oracle, and you call them and say, can I get a copy of your data book? They'll sign this big disclosure. And what's available to you is everything. Like every credit card transaction.
It's the quote unquote big data we all hear about.
Yeah, and they use that to create models of like whose behavioral points on a person to figure out like what's maybe like a life stage or who they are that might be responsive to an ad.
It's funny. I didn't listen to the earnings call, but the Meta earnings call was this week, and I saw some blip that Zuckerberg said that he sees it at some point. When you go to advertise with Facebook, you actually won't give them anything other than a budget and what your goals are, and they will literally do everything
they're pretty
else.
close to that now. Yeah.
So
I was running a Facebook ad the other day. They're just like, just want to just run this, click, no targeting, no selects, and probably not even write the ad.
because what is it? Just like they just optimize it for you, like based on
Yeah,
whatever
it's so
your goal
good
is.
that it just serves it up. And generally speaking, if I can give someone like a tip, maybe with Facebook ads, and no one really knows, it's kind of a black box, but you kind of like write your keywords in the Facebook ad. It's like attention real estate agents.
Right.
So the algorithm knows to serve it to them.
To real estate agents.
Yeah. So you kind of like drop some keyword targeting in your ad copy when you're writing online ads. So the AI knows like, oh yeah, that's who it's trying to reach. Attention homeowners. Good. Serve it to them.
Yeah. Homeowners in Tempe.
Yeah.
Looking
to do this. Like you write the list select as the headline in the ad. So AI targets it.
That's pretty crazy where that stuff's going.
Yeah.
What's on deck for you for the rest of the year, dude? Like, you got
settling down and raising the kids. Got an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, and they're in school here in Tempe. And we, well that we went out and mailed a lot of letters to buy a lot of properties.
Yeah, a lot.
And now it's a matter of managing them all and making sure. And I'd probably say the biggest stressor that we're dealing with property management is the cost, the rising cost of inputs. Like you just said, you replaced your air conditioner.
I replaced 2 of my
Okay,
air.
how much?
I have a few.
So how much has the price of air conditioners gone up?
It's just, it's so gross. I don't even want to talk about it.
Okay, so you probably
It's gone up a lot.
You know how much an air conditioner normally would cost.
Yeah.
They have significantly increased, dramatically.
I would guess 40 or 50% in the last few years.
We were talking. So my wife and I are back in Phoenix, and we went to dinner last night at a local bar, and she remembers the wings being $5 or $6 for an order of wings. I don't know, 8 wings, 10 wings, like cheap wings. Okay, $16.99
Yeah.
is what we had to pay
For one order.
for just a order of like basic bar wings.
We used to-
Fried, small.
We used to go to this place in Yuma where I grew up because on like Tuesdays and Thursdays they had, well, for a while it was 15-cent wings and then it was 25-cent wings. So like think about that. An order, let's just say it was 12, like you're paying $3 for, and now like, talking $16.
Yeah. So the prices of all the inputs to keep up the properties have gone up.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting one. We had a property. It's a nice house. It's about 3,200 square feet. And we were renting it for maybe $1,600 a month. The price of the value of the home went up so much that they increased the property taxes that I had to raise the rent to about $2,200 a month.
Just to cover your delta there.
Just to cover the cost of the insurance increases and the tax increases because of the value of the property.
Wow.
Okay. Which outpriced the tenant that could afford the house. So I have to sell it. I'm forced to sell because there's no market at that rent for that house. Do you catch the economics of what I'm saying here?
Yeah, that's madness.
Yeah, the cost pushed up, the values drug up the costs. I have to raise the rent to cover even the fixed cost to a rent level.
And that
the rental market can't command.
Keeps you out of the market
So
now.
I'm forced to sell my rental properties because of the increase of the prices. It's very interesting how the economics of things work.
That's insane.
You don't think about it from the outside, but when you're in it, you're like, yeah, we have to sell. Because there's no market of someone that's going to pay that rent.
That's wild.
Isn't that an interesting economic thing?
Yeah. If you had a crystal ball, and I know you don't,
Nope, I do not.
what do you expect in the real estate market for, let's call it the rest of the year? What do you think rest of this year looks like?
A resurgence of really good sales training. I think, the skill of the skill of finding a buyer and the skill of navigating it to a successful close is paramount.
Well, it takes both skills now. Like you got to be able to be a deal maker and you've got to go find the people that want to be in the deals. And I know it sounds crazy. Like you should kind of always be like that to a degree, but for a long time, like you didn't actually have to work very hard to find the people who wanted to be in the deals.
Competency.
Yeah.
Like real competency. So I would say the 2010, in my opinion, was maybe fueled by team growth, vision boards, culture. Let's build an organization. Let's build it like a team. Maybe I step out of it and I have other businesses, the 7th level idea concept that was popularized by Keller Williams for many years. For some that have gotten through the messy middle and have other income streams to diversify from commission revenue, congratulations. But for anyone else that's on commission revenue, you're focusing really now probably more on letting the non-productive agents go, a smaller group back in the business, focused on listings and competency to put the deals together.
Yeah.
Of a real professional. So I'd call it sales training or real skills training. I think you're going to see a comeback.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, those are my thoughts.
Cool. Anything else we should talk about today before we wrap? Anything on your mind you want to share?
I think for anyone watching, from my own personal experience, if you ask me what has impacted my life dramatically in the past 2 to 3 years,
Besides me, of course.
Besides you, Kevin. It's been the very realization that Americans are less than maybe 3% of the world population. I don't know what the world population is. It's a guess. And there's 350 million Americans. So you can
There are like 7 billion people now or something
sure,
like that.
So it's like 3-4%. And I think from your own level, maybe just regular prejudice that you have of just kind of growing up as an American, you just kind of view everything through an American lens of, in the context of work, labor, of who you can hire and what pay rates are and how the world works. And over the past couple of years, especially with my companies, with everyone, on salary W-2, I would have to raise my prices so high to be able to afford to pay the staff like a quality living wage that I'd price myself out of the market, just like some of these rentals are pricing themselves out of the markets. So I had to get very, very serious about hiring internationally. You might call it VAs. I hate the word VA, virtual assistant. I just had to hire internationally. I had to hire the exact same competent people, if not better, from the other, let's say 97% of the world.
Right.
Okay. And opening up my mind to the 100% fact, without question, no prejudice, like understanding of traveling abroad and spending my time, that there's absolutely nothing someone in a foreign country can't do that American can't do. And I would think like, oh, I have to do that here in the States. I can't put it abroad. That's something someone abroad can't do. That is such a thing that I think the whole industry of professional services, I think with the change of economics and work from home and people aren't coming into the office and just where the world is heading is, I think everyone's, and I would say probably if you really study the word prejudice, will have to be understood to get comfortable working with it, and everyone will get comfortable working with an international team to be able to make the economics of a professional service sustainable with where I think the world's going. So my last thought is take your foreign team seriously. If you have VAs and you have a foreign team, my best advice is to go fly out there and meet them. I think from LAX, I priced this out. If you fly to LAX and you say you go to the Philippines, and there's many other countries you can go to, it's about $2,500 for a premium economy seat. It's not that bad, man. All right. Like, I know how much you can spend going to a conference, for a real estate conference. Spend a little more money on a ticket. And then when you land in Manila, you go downtown, and you can stay at a nice Marriott for probably $150 a night. Stay there for a couple of days. You don't have to even do anything, but just kind of go out and see the population, see everything, go on the job board, see what they're paying, calculate that in dollars, start thinking like what everyone's getting paid and how everything works, and get comfortable with like the price of food and how it all works. And I think you walk back with such an understanding of comfort that you can hire all of your positions, most likely for most businesses doing, let's say, under 10 million in revenue, maybe a few key leaders in the United States, you can hire the rest anywhere in the world. And that understanding of knowing that with absolute certainty will give you a lot of freedom in your business and flexibility when it is very difficult to maintain an entire workforce and pay them competitively with the rising increases of inflation and whatnot here in the U.S. How was that?
That's pretty good. I think you gave us all a lot to think about.
Those are some of my thoughts. So that's been a big part of my life. About 2/3 of our company at Viral Now is international.
Awesome.
And it's been wonderful.
I think most of our listeners know this, but let's just say it for anybody's sake that doesn't. Where someone wants to inquire about either direct mail or viral marketing, where's the best place for them to go?
I have two companies. One is viral marketing I've been doing for 15 years, VYRAL. Go check it out. That's where I'd start. A lot less expensive, and it's essentially an editorial process to help you create helpful educational information to articulate your competence and expertise, to stay in touch with your most important contacts like your past client sphere and leads. It's a great long-term nurture program where you get to prove to people you know what you're talking about, right? The other business is very expensive, very, very, very expensive. But it's essentially I take a lot of the copy that we write for viral customers to spike leads from the database, and we put it on a letter as opposed to an email, and you mail it. The challenge is when you do direct mail and you want to do it right, statistically speaking, you have to do a lot.
Yeah.
And it's expensive. And you probably have to now be in the right market, because I can see the differences, the calls coming in. And if that's something you want to talk about, I'm here. But usually when anyone calls me for the direct mail company, I'm probably spend the first 30 minutes talking them out of it. Because you can lose a lot of money really fast.
Goes fast.
In advertising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt. Awesome, guys. So what's the URL? Is it getviral.com?
Getviral.com, VYRAL. And then the other business is my last name, Klesitz, Klesitz direct. And enjoy that. It's a sales letter.
It's a good one, too.
You read it?
Yeah, of course I have.
Cool.
I was going to say, I like how you spelled your last name. I was going to say it's spelled exactly the way it sounds.
Klesitz.
It's so easy to spell.
I think it's Czech.
Is it?
I think so.
Well, all right, awesome, man. I guess that's a wrap for today. I'm sure we'll see you again on the show sometime in the future.
Thanks.
All right, guys. See you next week.